Hello and welcome to episode 47 of the Large Format Photography Podcast. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Andrew Bartram, Eric Matthey and Nicole Small. Hello Andrew.
Hello Simon.
Hello Eric.
Hey Simon.
And hello Nicole.
Hello everybody.
It's great to have you with us, Nicole.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's going to be good. And first of all, I wish to thank our guest from 2 weeks ago, which was Jared Ortiz. We had a great chat with him, and he does not do Ansel Adams' job. We found that very, very clear. He does not do that job. So thank you for being a great guest last time out, Jared. Right, I think I'm going to hand over to Andrew, because Andrew knows something about our guest. So take it away.
Well, I don't know that much. That makes me sound a bit creepy, to be honest. Well, we have spoken before. I think in the fairly early on, another podcast, the Lensless podcast, and this is much more professional, Nicole. So it's lovely to have you here. So what I know about you, Nicole, is you live in Montreal.
Yes, I do.
You would be a self-proclaimed self-portrait artist. I think that would be the best direction you're going in, but I know you do studio portraits and you do straight portraits as well. Lots of pinhole. I know you building lots of wacky things because we heard you on the large format. No, we didn't. We heard you on the homemade camera podcast. So welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry to put you through this next question because it's the one that we always ask, and having just listened to the homemade camera episode, let's see if you say the same things as you said to them. But that was a little while ago, so maybe you've got a few more things to
No
add
pressure.
In. No pressure.
No pressure.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Nicole, for those listeners who don't listen to the Homemade Camera podcast.
My name is Nicole Small. I'm from Montreal, Canada. And, well, where do I begin? I started shooting a film in 2012. And it has morphed so much since that time. Most of the time I do pinhole photography, but I also work with film, FP4, one of my favorite films from Ilford. I do some darkroom printing. I also work with the cyanotype process. And within all of those, I kind of experiment with a lot of different things, and which has brought me to today, also including camera building, which is an obsession and continues. So that's generally the things that I do. Okay,
so let's talk a little bit about, let's get camera building out of the way, because I need you to tell me how to build a box camera. Why do you build your own cameras, Nicole?
Well, when I started with 4x5 building. I built a 4x5, and I just said, you know what, I want it bigger. So I built a 5x7. And then I said, I want it even bigger. And then I just built an 8x10, and it just has continued. I've made super wide pinhole cameras, wide pinhole cameras, telephoto pinhole cameras in varying sizes, because I do work with it oftenly in a studio situation, and the telephoto works much better for that than a super wide or a wide. I have to take into consideration how I have to set myself up. The lights having to come in as close as possible. And with a super wide, if those lights are in too close, they end up coming into your frame. So, that's it. It just started and it just hasn't stopped. I don't know.
You don't want to be like 2 inches away from somebody to take a portrait of their face with a pinhole? What could possibly go wrong?
Well, actually, some of the most striking pinhole pictures I've seen are, if you're not familiar with Justin Quinnell, he's like Mr. Pinhole, really. Justin Quinnell is a pinhole guru. He's an educator. He teaches kids. He does pinhole workshops for school sports days. he does things with gets groups of kids together with to play soccer, but over their heads he puts a big dustbin with a pinhole in it, and he makes them watch the world navigate and play football through effectively a camera obscura. And he teaches the kids all about image making through. And then he puts film in his mouth. He's famous for putting film in his mouth and doing pinhole images through his teeth and all bizarre things like that. And then he does these things called orphalograms, where he's blasting. This will be flattering for your clients, Nicole, blasting their face with powerful flash guns, like 2 inches from their face, with a wide pinhole camera, and you get this distorted big noses and ears and whiskers.
Yeah, that was one problem that that I found, is the lights being so close. I mean, I use constant lights. I don't use flash, but I had to invest in other lights because I was using hot lights at the time when I started, which is not a comfortable situation, especially when those lights are 2 feet away from you. It gets very, very hot. And if you're there for a minute and a half, it's a lot for someone who doesn't really know what it is to stay still for that length of time in front of a light like that. So I invested in LED lights, and it made it a little easier working with clients, but the look is not the same. That's the drawback for me. The look is just not the same. I prefer the hot lights over the LED lights. It just has a completely different look.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because, well, it's just the different type of light itself from a technical standpoint, as well as the color of the light and the bandwidth of the light is just, they're much, much different. But yeah, it's like having like a small solar flare within 5 feet of your face 4 times over if you have like 3 or 4 hot lights. Yeah, those things get super warm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are these pinhole portraits you're talking about for clients, Nicole, or do they ask for like normal portraits with glass?
Well, usually if they come to me, and they'll usually ask me what they want, or sometimes I'll just send something out there, anyone who would like a pinhole portrait, and people come to me for that specifically. But which is rare. It's not something that's, people are out there wanting and dying for, but it does happen from time to time. Yeah.
But you would be the main model for most of your work you're up to these days, wouldn't you?
Yes. It's much easier. It's much easier. And, even when you try to explain the whole idea of it, they don't get it, and they kind of get turned off because they have no understanding of what it is, no matter how much I will explain it or show them. So it's really people that already have an idea of what it is and what pinhole photography is. The fact that it's long exposures. You're not just going to be sitting there and moving every, second in a different position. It's that you're sitting in that position for a while. And I think that's probably a big drawback. And having to remain completely still. That's, it's not easy when you're doing it for the first time.
And which camera are you using mostly for these pinhole portraits, the ones you built?
I built a telephoto, I guess you can say, a pinhole camera, 5x7. And that one I really, really like because it's just bigger, So I really enjoy using that one. But when I started, I mostly used the 4x5. Again, it was more of a telephoto than a wide angle.
Can we just talk into about the technical side of these pinholes that you're doing there? Because you're talking about, I think of a pinhole as something that is usually a wide angle thing, and I've done pinhole on 4x5, and the position I had was relatively close to the film. So I mean, telephoto is a bit of a funny term in itself. I mean, we know that we're not specifically talking about telephoto.
Yeah, the further you go, the further you are away from the film plane, pinhole from the film plane, the less the angle is. It closes in. So again, having to keep in mind when I'm working with studio lights that I need to have those lights in very close. I have to adjust that camera and have it a lot longer than the wide angle or super wide, which is usually very, very close. Like the pinhole is very close to the film plane itself. So I have to make them longer, which again increases your exposure time. So, there's a drawback for that, but it works best in the way that I work with the pinhole camera and self-portraits.
So the actual hole size, I mean, the hole is further away from the film. That's the first thing there. But the actual hole size, does that change as the position moves further away from the film plane?
I guess the holes would be maybe a little bit bigger than the wide or super wide, but it also depends. There is a calculation for you to know how long the focal length of the camera should be to best suit the pinhole that you're using. There is I don't remember the name of the website, but there's a website that actually shows you how to calculate all of that. I don't remember the name at this point.
Nicole, it's Mr. Pinhole is probably the one you're
That's
thinking
it.
of.
Yeah. That's it. Exactly.
So for every focal length, and I've stopped worrying about using the term focal length because some of the best pinhole minds in the world use it. For each focal length, there will be an optimum size pinhole, which you can calculate if you're good at maths or math, as at least two of you on this podcast would say. Or you can just go to Mr. Pinhole and you can put in any number of variables, such as what size image circle you're looking for, or what film size you're using. You could put in what the focal length is, or you can put in your pinhole size, and then it'll tell you what the optimum focal length is, whichever way around you want to do it. So if you're thinking of just building a pinhole camera, Mr. Pinhole is probably the go-to place.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so the actual, we will continue to call it focal length. I mean, what would be the equivalent focal length that you're using for, say, a 4x5, if you, or even a 7x5, because that's what you've just been saying there. So
it's about 6.5, 7 inches, I think, is the distance. It's about there. That's where I'm at with most of the telephoto style pinhole cameras. It's around 6-7 inches. Yeah.
It's about 170-ish millimeters.
Yes.
Yeah.
About. Yeah.
I've got a 150 mil pinhole camera, Nicole. One I didn't make it, but I was given it, 4x5, and that produces what you'd think of as a sort of normal view. But that's much.
It might be in between that wide and telephoto. So there may be a point where you're positioned where you won't get much distortion, but as you're moving closer in, then you'll start to kind of see that, that distortion kick in. So you'd have to kind of find that distance if that's what you're looking for, of minimal distortion.
What do you end up with for an aperture for that? Like, so thinking about being in studio with I'm not going to say hot lights, but with lights.
Yes.
Right. And like your typical pinhole aperture of f3 million and 5, something ungodly.
It's an f300. F300. Okay. Yeah, f300.
So you end up sitting there for about 5 minutes?
Sometimes longer.
Okay.
It's again, it all depends on what I'm going to do. Now, if I know that I'm going to be moving, say, from one side to the next, I'd have to back the camera up, which means the lights go further back. So it then will increase my time, so to make sure that I don't get cut off, I'd have to back the camera up. I did extensive tests with the distances and height and all that stuff when I started. But now it's kind of, I just know where to position it for what I'm going to do.
Right. And that allows you, though, like looking through some of your work previously, to get that sort of almost semi-strobe multi-exposure, because you have like 5-10 minutes. You can hold, do you do a timer like you get? Was 3 minutes? 2 minutes? 1 minute? Like, do you like do like a semi like multiple exposure just by quickly moving between positions and then holding it?
Yeah. I used to count in my head, which sometimes you get mixed up. I lose count because I'm trying to concentrate, and staying very still.
Yeah.
But then I discovered it's a fitness app, and it's an app that you can set whatever time you want. So you have a workout period, and then you have a resting period. So I would put the workout period for 1 minute, and it would beep, and then it would go into the resting period. So then I would know when I would need to change. So that's kind of how I ended up becoming more controlled in the way that I would do things, because, I can't look at the time, because if I try to look at the time, then you're going to see me, I'm going to just lose track of the whole idea of the image. So that's what I use. I use a fitness app.
It's I have that time. It's called the interval timer. I actually, I think it is. Yep, I use that exact same thing for developing film. Well, I did anyways, in a bathroom without a safe light, or because I didn't have a darkroom timer. But I'd keep that in my pocket, so it would let me know when a minute had passed, so I could agitate film in a tray without the phone going off and fogging the film.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah.
I'll drag you back to box camera construction in a minute, but we keep going down these other rabbit holes. That you're asking about focal lengths, Eric. f352 is my 150mm wooden box camera. So that's you put some foamer in 100 in that, and the that word I can't know. Yes, that reciprocity adjustment will take you about a week. So you have to set your interval timer, Nicole. You'll have to set your interval timer for 1 beep a day.
I don't actually add the whatever failure thing. I don't add it in my my calculations. I don't.
To be honest, if you've got some pretty bright lights, or you're outside and you're using FP4, you'd probably be okay.
But a lot of my pin portraits have been on paper. There a lot of that time I used paper.
Oh yeah, well you don't need to add it then. Paper doesn't really have that same responsive. Film does. Paper doesn't. So
I was going to say, with FP4, Jared, our previous guest, would definitely argue with you about not using reciprocity with FP4.
Oh no, you do. But if you're outside, you don't. For pinholes, if it's 1 or 2 seconds, you probably get away with it. Once you start, then if it's 5, it starts becoming 7 or 8. If it's 10, you probably want to become 15 or something. But you can get away with it if it's bright sunlight. Just going with it, and then or you can use Acros, of course. Acros.
Oh, that's a wonderful film. Oh my goodness. Oh, I love that film.
Much loved by the pinhole community, or it was. Simon's waving.
I was going to say, I don't wish to leave telephoto pinhole just this minute, and I can feel the conversation moving away from it. And now then, focus. Focus with a pinhole. Does it exist? Now I know that with you, when you've got like a wide angle pinhole, pretty much just about everything appears to be in focus, or virtually as good as pinhole gets. The longer that focal length, if you like, do you actually start to actually get a point that actually is in focus, and then something that is further away that is, I wouldn't go as far as putting it in bokeh, but it's is there a distinct area that's specifically in focus that you want to actually get your subject into?
No, it's all in focus. It's from the pinhole all the way to infinity. It's just all in focus. There's no there's no depth of field. You won't find any depth of field in there, or be able to play with depth of field, unless maybe you add a filter on there or something. But it's just open to everything.
Right.
There are certainly some commercial cameras, Simon, that perform better. Better is a heavily loaded word. But for instance, we were talking probably before air about James Guerin, who runs a little business out in France called Reality So Subtle, which is just a great name, isn't it? Reality So Subtle. And he makes pinhole cameras and on a he makes 4x5, 8x10, but I've got one of his 6x6 cameras, and that's got a focal length of probably 20 mil, so it's one of these really quite wide ones, But if you put that right next to, say, a fork, an eating utensil, you call them forks, don't you, Eric?
Yes, we do call them forks.
Just checking.
What do you call them? You just say,
I'm just checking because sometimes I get a blank look when I say something.
You just say, pass me the three-pointed eating utensil?
Well, you might just use your fingers, I don't know. Yeah. So when you put James's cameras close up to something, particularly something shiny and metallic, it just comes out as though it's a lens photograph. And Simon, I certainly notice it with those cameras, and I don't know if it's a function of the design or the precision pinhole he uses, but that fork, the end of that fork, which is right next to the camera, is bitingly sharp, and things in the back are still sharp, but they're more like pinhole sharp, So there does seem to be some of that effect with some designs, but I'm certainly not clever enough to tell you why that would be. Bitingly sharp, yes, with a fork. So paper negatives, Nicole.
Yes.
Why paper negatives? Is it just because they give you the look you're after, or because it's cheap?
Well, number one, it's cheaper. Especially, when I started, that's what I used. I said I was not going to go into film, and I just got used to using it. Yeah. And I did use film, but again, I just like the look of the paper. It's so different. It's just very different. There's more of a mysterious look with the paper. And I guess the contrast that it has, I just prefer the look of paper. I just prefer the look.
Are you using variable contrast, RC, or are you using fiber, fixed contrast?
Oh no, I'm using the. I don't use fiber. It's too problematic.
It is pretty
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I use the RC.
Have you used the direct positive, the Harman? Because that's fiber, isn't it? They used to make an RC version, but they don't anymore.
I never used it. I never used the direct positive paper. No, I never used it. I never tried it. It's quite expensive, though. It's not very cheap.
Yeah. So just dragging you a little bit back forward, I'd like to explore some why pinhole and the sort of vision that you have for the art that you create. But I can't let you escape without talking about pinhole, about box camera building. Nicole, how did you learn to make cameras? And are they all foam core and tape?
Foam core, tape, and glue.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. It's about my level of ability.
All from the dollar store.
But you're putting lenses on these things as well now, aren't you? Because I've seen.
I use I use magnifying glasses or pinhole, of course. It gets very heavy when you're. I've wanted to use it with a lens, but it gets heavy, and I don't think it would be very. I'm like trekking around and stuff like that. So I just kind of kept it as light as possible.
But you used that lens off your speed graphic, didn't you, or crown graphic?
Oh yeah, it's actually I broke off the glass.
Nice.
And it was an old one that wasn't working, and I broke off the glass, and I kind of use it for self-portraits so that I could go a little bit of a distance away, and then just open the shutter and close the shutter. So that's kind of how
you need to wind back because I'm completely confused now. So is it a lens or isn't it?
It's there. I can put in a lens that I put in a lens if I want to use it as a 8x10 camera, and then if I want to use it as a pinhole, I'll just use the shutter itself and make the size that I want, and then open, close. So I kind of did it like a duo box camera kind of thing.
Because it doesn't focus, does it? The one I saw on your excellent. By the way, you just have.
There is a distance of focus. I think it's about maybe 3.5 feet or something like that.
Okay.
And then everything else will just go blurry. So it's a very small room. There's not much room for that. You have to be really careful where you're standing, in that regard.
And are you just taping your foam core together, or are you using any reinforcement in the construction?
Oh no, it's just tape.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to use reinforcement if I'm going to put any kind of lens that I'm thinking of on it.
Oh no, with a lens, I think you definitely will need more than just
foam
tape.
core.
Yeah, you probably need some glue and maybe like multiple layers of foam core.
Yeah. I'll work something out.
It's like plywood, but
yeah, I've got zero budget, Eric. You see, that's the thing.
Yeah, ply foam. You're going to use some ply foam, Andrew.
Ply foam. Yeah. So what is it about? Because you're not looking for sharp, are you, Nicole? Generally, you're not looking for sharp.
I don't care for it.
No.
I don't really care. Like, how I don't look for sharpness. No. I really look for creating that image that I want. And, if it's sharp, it's sharp. If it's not, it's not. That's really, I don't think about that. I really don't think about that. Just the idea that I want to convey in the image, and that's it.
So I saw you wandering around. Well, I mean, on YouTube, I wasn't actually following you. You understand, in the woods. I saw you wandering around the woods with a pinhole camera. With a pinhole camera, and you were bitching about the quality of light, because pinhole photographers hate that directional light can sometimes be a real.
Oh my goodness!
Really difficult to work out your exposures and stuff. But
the day started off nice. It was kind of gray. There wasn't much wind, and then when I got to the location, the sun was like gleaming and all over the place, and it got so windy. And I was like, man, this is going to be tough, because, you have to kind of judge your time now. Now it changes, because I can kind of look at the, at the sky or whatever, and I can kind of say, okay, this is about the time that I know I'm going to need. But when it's so bright, I can't just go out in full sun. So I had to kind of stay within the trees to kind of, block off some of that extra light coming through. So that was a bit of a bummer, but it came out okay, I think.
When you're doing those sorts of images, you're out there and you were doing, again, some multiple exposures, or some you were just doing, you'd find a tree or some texture, and then you'd put yourself in there. You're drawn to those sort of images? Is there some sort of message that you're trying to say? Is it to do with permanence and impermanence, or because your own self-portrait bit of it is sometimes it's quite clear, sometimes you're almost like a little ghost, aren't you? Is there some message that you're trying to put through with that body of work, Nicole?
Sometimes it's not planned to be that ghosty as it comes out. Yeah. But, when you have the trees blowing behind you, it makes it very hard to have a defined image of myself, because everything is just moving all the time. So that kind of makes it a little bit difficult. But, it's a hit and miss sometimes. You do it. I just look and I see, okay, this looks good as composition wise, and I place myself in there, and I just do it. I just go for it. But there's a lot of things you have to think about, which sometimes I forget. And depending upon what I'm wearing, if I'm wearing dark clothes or if I'm wearing light clothes, and if I'm in front of something that's dark or light, I have to consider those things, because I can get lost in whatever's behind me. Like my hair being very dark. If I'm in front of, say, just a bush or something, my hair will just get, it'll just get like, you won't really see my hair. You'll just kind of see a little bit of my face, and it'll get lost in the trees. So there's things you have to think about. But when I'm out there, it's just so exciting, and I'm just doing it, that I sometimes don't think of those things. But, in the end, it's fun. It's exciting. And I just love it. I just love it.
Do you ever sort of bring something like little props or little things with you to help you? Like knowing that, okay, because I'm with you, I don't pay attention very often to things like that. And then I get the negative back. I'm like, yay or nay, great, terrible. I wish I had seen that, not seen that. But do you bring little like props, things that you can either like quick switch out to a different jacket or shawl or something that can help you get that?
No, I haven't, but it is my plan to do more of that this summer. depending on how far out I'm allowed to go.
Yeah.
But I don't usually bring props and stuff. But yes, the thought of it has come into mind because of, like you said, you're like, oh, I should have done this, or I should have, so I want to try to minimize those thoughts of coming back and saying, damn, I should have brought this, and it's just there. It's just, in my closet, and I could have just slapped it in my bag or whatever, So, yeah, I think I will more so come with different changes of clothes, if that is what I would need, and props as well. Yeah, I think it would make it more interesting.
Because even if for me anyways, like I may say, okay, I'll remember where the spot is. And even sometimes when I go back, the light's a little bit different. The foliage is different. Like things have changed enough where even if I go back for the shot, because the first one wasn't any good or wasn't to what I'd like, I'm never going to get the perfect same shot, because the things are just,
it's always different. It's always different. Yeah, it's always different when you go back. You might have the same idea, but again, it just changes. And that, having to do, like you said, the lighting could be different. Maybe there's a lot more people around, so you got to kind of move a little bit off to the side where it's not really where you want to do it, So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's momentarily on that, for me, the light bulb really switched on. Okay, I can go back again and again and again to certain places. When I saw, do you know who, any of you know who Joseph Kudelka is? Right.
Yeah, I was just watching a YouTube documentary of him on Masters of Photography series, I think it was.
Yeah, he's ridiculous. He's a little older now. A magnet photographer.
He must be dead now, isn't he? Surely.
No, he's certainly not, actually.
Is he not? Are you sure?
No, pretty sure.
Okay.
So anyways, there's this great documentary. He's the first person I ever saw who he went from documentary photography to doing these incredible panoramic landscapes. And he actually turned these beautiful zonal, incredible landscapes into political and documentary work by shooting a body of work on pollution behind the Iron Curtain. It's called the Black Triangle, and it's just mind-blowing. So he's continued to shoot these incredible panoramics as documentary or political pieces, because he's a member of Magnum. That's what they do. But watch a documentary called Joseph Kudelka Shooting the Holy Land. He did these incredible panoramics of the walls that are separating Israel and Jerusalem, and its impact on those societies. And so his assistant shot a documentary film on him doing that work. And there's this moment where he goes back and he's like, I've been back here many times. I'm going to keep coming back. What do you have for me? Because he just kept going back to this place and shooting it because he just wasn't getting the shot that spoke to what he wanted. And he revisited it constantly. And I was like, yeah, you can, you can do that. This isn't like, it's still for him, still photojournalism in a way, but it's not that fleeting moment he wanted wasn't there. So he just kept going back again and again and again and again until he got the shot that for him summarized that place. And so maybe for you, it's going back with a different set of props or a different set of foliage or something that you don't like your hair doesn't like blend into, or taking a little more care or whatnot.
Yeah. There are some places that I do want to return to. So yeah, I definitely will go back with, more prepared, better prepared.
Right.
Are you working towards a particular body of work of ideas to aim for?
Yes, I am. My gosh, there's so many things, so many different things. But I don't really want to say too much just yet because
it's okay.
I got to start working on it. Yeah.
Have you found? Okay, let's go down this route. Have you found? Oh, look, a cup of tea arriving. Have you found that your work style or your approach to photography has changed during the pandemic, Nicole?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so because when I have something in my mind, that's it. I'm doing it. That's all it is. That's all it takes for me. It hasn't changed aside from maybe being able to photograph people. That's the only thing that changed because of, what's going on and all. But aside from my doing my own thing, no, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed.
We had a guest on the Lensless podcast last week, Nicole, Wendy Chapman, and one of her lockdown pinhole projects has been photographing her neighbours. You know, she lives in a fairly small community, but she's taken her 4x5. No, it might have been a 6x7 pinhole camera, and she's done 5 or 6 images of neighbours. I think she's now working on shopkeepers, getting them to just sort of come out and stand outside, and that's just infused her and fired her up, you know. And I thought, wow, what a wonderful project and commentary on the times we live in. You can either agree or not. It's fine.
but you've specifically mentioned in your Instagram and your posts about the TLR project that you had to put that on ice and step back from it because of the pandemic, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Because of supplies, right? You're not able to get the supplies you need.
Yeah. Which was a real bummer because I was so excited, and then this happened, and then that's when I ended up building another camera because I had to build something. You know, my mind was just stuck there and I couldn't move from it. And so I built something else. And now that things are open again, I could start going back to this TLR. And the good thing about it is that I got a chance to really think about, how do I really want to build this TLR?
Right.
Do I want to build it in foam core? Do I want to use the magnifying glass? There's a lot of different things that started to run in my head. So the build might change quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I think the most difficult thing is probably getting the lenses, 2 lenses,
right?
Matching ones. That's probably going to be the hardest thing for me to get. And because they're not cheap. So.
I have ideas on. I guess my question on that vein would be, since sharpness does or doesn't necessarily matter to you, right? Like when you're looking for lenses, in this case, you're deviating from pinholes, you're going into glass.
Yes.
Are you looking for something that's sharp? Are you looking for something that's artistic? What is your criteria for a lens for a project?
I will be looking for something that's more sharp, definitely.
Okay.
Just as yes, definitely. I would like to have images that are more sharp.
Right.
So yeah, I'm really deviating from that pinhole thing.
And it's an unusual size though, right? 12 by, it's a 12?
Yes, 12 by 12. And I'm worried that maybe I might have to make it a little bit smaller, but again, I'm not giving up on that yet. I just really have to find those lenses. And then I think once I get those lenses, I'll be able to kind of put everything together. And I'm not sure if I'm going to use foam core. I don't think I'm going to use foam core anymore. So, yeah.
What are you going to use? What are you going to use? Sorry, Nicole.
That's okay. It's going to be a big guy, and
yep.
Mm-hmm.
That glass that I'm going to need. You see that already.
Yeah, there's
has some weight.
Yes.
I was looking into acrylic glass, but I'm not sure if that would work. Ones that you can cut.
Not super well, honestly.
Okay.
You could, and I just don't know if it'll cover a 12 by 12, essentially, a 4-inch by 4-inch piece of negative. But the Fred at the Surplus Shed has some TLR assemblies that were used for portrait cameras back in the day, medium format portrait cameras back in the day, and it's a complete assembly with two matching lenses. There's I'll send you a link. There's
fantastic.
There's a portrait company that made their own cameras, and they had like bulk 120 rolls. It was for here in America, like in high school, middle school, you had your yearly portrait at school.
Yeah.
And so this company did all those with their huge company. That's all they did. And they made these cameras to spec. And then when it went under, Fred at the Surplus Shed bought up all of their lens stock. And so he's selling them individually and in pairs and assemblies.
Oh, wow.
So, but I don't know they'll cover a 4" by 4" or a 12 by 12 negative, but they're very inexpensive relative. They're high quality glass. I think they're made by Pentax. And they're really nice. I've been meaning to buy them for ages. But they're like less than $100 American.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'll send you a link.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. That's when earlier when we were chatting, I was like, TLR, oh, I may know of something. So
but so just forgive my stupid, ignorant, daft question, Nicole. But when you say I'm getting confused now. So 12 by 12, are you talking inches or centimeters?
Inches.
Yeah.
Oh, inches.
Because Eric was just mentioned 4 by 4 inches, didn't he?
Yeah, I was thinking 12 by 12 centimeter.
Yeah, so you've got to project.
It's going to be a big one.
Okay.
It'd be enormous. I'd take it this is going to be a studio camera.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, it's going to be a studio camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to envisage it. Sorry, why is it going to be just a studio camera? Because it's going to be
why are you torturing yourself making a 12-inch by 12-inch TLR?
I don't find it's I just want to do it. I just want. I love TLR cameras.
You do, don't you? You get your Yashica D is your baby, isn't it?
Yeah, I love TLR cameras. So why not make one bigger? Why not?
How do you even go about making a TLR? Have you had to strip down your Yashica D to see how it works? Or
yes, that's exactly what I did. I had bought one for parts.
Okay.
That was really cheap, and I stripped it. I took it all apart, and that's kind of what I'm working off of. I'm just working off of a broken down Yashica D.
So you're gonna have a big old bit of mirror in there or something, are you, for your?
Yeah, that's another hard thing I'm gonna figure out too. Because I did find a glass that was 12 by 12, but man, it's so heavy that
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Right. Oh man, 12-inch. Now you got my brain going because I build lenses. I'm trying to think of what I would build to make for something that's 12-inch by 12-inch, because the size of the glass you need to cover 8 by 10 is still pretty big diameter-wise.
Yeah. I mean, the magnifying glasses that I have, I've projected them against the wall and they give me a really large surface area, but the sharpness is going to be very hard to figure out. That's going to be a big problem. It's very small. It's a very, very small area of sharpness that I'll get.
Yeah. You'll have to stop it down.
Yes.
A fair bit to get any sharpness off of a non-commercial lens.
Yes. So, there's a lot of little thingies that I got to really look into and see how it can work out.
I think you might have to give up on the idea of sharpness, Nicole, quite frankly.
Probably. And if I have to, well, I that's what it'll be.
I think so. And that'll just suit your vision, because, hey, sharpness, we don't want any of that, do we, really? What did you have a vision for the sort of images that you might want to make? Let's assume you've gone through all the difficulties and you've actually built this beast. What is it you want to do with it?
I can't tell you that now because it's got to be.
Oh, I see. It's one of your projects. Oh, goodness me!
It's got to come all at once,
I keep trying different approaches. I'm like one of these sneaky interviewers on Radio 4. You don't have Radio 4, do you? Keep asking you the same question, but in different ways. Seeing if you'll break. But you had a bit of a background. You've got a bit of a background in design, and none of this is new to you, is it? I heard you saying to the guys that you were, you had background in clothing design. Is that does that help you in thinking about camera builds and these sort of projects?
Maybe in some way it does, but I don't know. I can't say for sure. I can't say for sure.
And you've not got into 3D printing yet? Because that's something our Simon
that's
does.
something that I actually I'm thinking about. Ethan from I asked him, inquired about that. So I might be getting into that as well, making things a little bit more sturdy than it is with the foam core, So
yeah,
that is definitely something that I've been looking into. Yeah.
Well, Simon's your man here in this little band of warriors to help you. He's got a few.
Yeah, but when you've got Ethan Moses on tap, that's the direction you go in, really.
Yeah.
You sometimes I've seen you on the when he does his YouTube builds. When he's kind of just looking for people to come and talk to him.
When he's lonely.
Yes, I've seen you hanging out there.
But would you miss the hands-on work and the aesthetic of the hand builds and foam core if you went to the 3D printing, or would you try to do a mashup of 3D printing and foam core just to keep, there's just something about the process that's magical when you build your own like that.
Yeah, I think I probably will. And maybe I will combine the two together. Because it feels so right too when I'm making that, just cutting everything up. And even if I have to tear it down and start all over again, like, I just love it. I really, really love it.
Yeah. And the danger of it's going really, really well. Then you do this next little bit that you've never, for me, that I've never done before. And this could really screw the whole thing up. I have to start from scratch again. Yes. And every single step is filled with danger.
Yeah. But, at the time it's like, man, but then it's like when you do it over again and it works out, it's like you feel so good,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not to take away from 3D printing, Simon, it's amazing. And and you're 3D printing me some body caps. It's cool, but it's just like, it's a different aesthetic of experience.
It is. It's in many respects it's more precise, but it's not that precise. But it's just interesting actually that I think last night I was lying in bed and I was thinking about, can I make a large format TLR? And here we are, sort of talking very, very close to doing that. And although what you're doing, Nicole's not quite that. Oh, no, it is that. Sorry, it's more than that. Sorry, I'm still getting confused with when Eric started talking about medium format and 12 centimeters and all this kind of stuff.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've done nothing to get it out of my head. Because I'm thinking, well, if I do that 4x5, that's going to be a lot easier than what Nicole's doing. In theory, anyway. Although I would probably looking to use proper lenses on it rather than magnifying glasses and things like that. But there are a few challenges in there. Making how the mirror works, how you get that aligned correctly, and your ground glass and all that kind of stuff. But it's an interesting one, and my cogs are going on that one at the moment.
Do you find, Nicole, when you've been on a long run of, the pinhole just lends itself to this creativity, to this expression of otherworldly vision, to capturing chunks of time in a very real way, and your head becomes switched into a sort of pinhole means of expression. Well, I know mine does, and then I pick up a lensed camera, either a large format or my RB67. And sometimes I find myself just, having some creativity squashed, because that pinhole gives you so much room to sort of explore ideas of sort of time and capturing light, that sometimes I find it really hard to then adjust to lens cameras. Is that just me, or do you have similar difficulties?
I don't have difficulties, actually. I think it's kind of creates more of a balance for me where when I do sometimes do that switch up. Yeah. So I'm not always, trying to approach something the same way. I have to now change my way of thinking. And I like that. I like to kind of change it up a little bit. It just keeps me fresh, I guess, if you can say. And, I guess also too in my mind, I know that, say, for example, next weekend, I said, okay, if next weekend's nice, I'm going to bring my, my Minolta camera. I'm already in my mind, already have prepared what I'm going to use. So when I'm out there, I'm already set and I'm ready to go. So, yeah.
You're not afraid to dive in as a clear love of the medium of the expressive art, and I was looking at your YouTube videos and you were playing around with Jason Lane's plates, and I know Eric's begun to play around with Jason Lane's plates, and I played around last summer when we had daylight. Now, we've not had that much daylight since then. So I've got still a stash of 4.5 and also 6 plate ones that we've spoken about on the show before that fit in my Rolly Flex. Tell us about your experience so far of glass plates, and I think you can then lurch into cyanotypes on glass as well, because I see you've been up to that.
Well, the one thing I like about the dry plate is the look that you get, of course, but really what my goal is to have them come out as positives, make them direct positives. And I guess it's the closest that I'll ever get to the look of the the wet plate kind of look. And that's kind of what I've been experimenting with. I went through a lot of plates, but it's funny because I make my own developer, Agfa 12 to be exact. Agfa 304, I think it is. And it was the paper developer. And I got the best results, closest results with that than I did with the multigrade or the Dectal. It's really weird. So I'm still playing around with how, I will make it work out. And I realized also too, at one point I wasn't fixing long enough. So that's something I have to consider as well. And I'm not too sure about, when you're flashing the plate with light, I'm not sure how. I think that's where my issue is, where my problem is. I think that's where, I don't know if it's too long or if the light is too strong, or just not sure about that.
Have you just gone outside with first of all, what camera are you putting these glass plates in, Nicole? Are they pinhole cameras?
It's a 4x5 graphics camera that I'm using for it.
So you've got a lens, so it's a fairly normal, view camera or press camera or whatever. So, but presumably, have you been out in just bright sunlight and just done some reference shots, based on ISO?
It's been mostly indoors because it's too cold to go outside. So.
But you might find it easier just to get a handle on. I've seen you out on your veranda. Well, again, not physically. I'm not sort of on the landing above you on your YouTube videos. You go out and take pictures of yourself on your landing, and then come back in and say it's freezing out there. So
that I did once, and that was like I was frozen. It was really cold that day too. It was really cold, so I kind of kept myself indoors a lot of the time.
Have you got the ISO 2 stuff or the 25 stuff? What you've been using?
I was using ISO 2, but I recently got some ISO 25. So I'm going to give those a shot and see how that comes around. Right. I don't know.
The advice I got with the ISO 25, because that's what I was shooting, and the first, I knew nothing of dry plate. I just loaded them up and went out and shot them at 25 ASA, and it was like, woo, that was a mistake, by the way. Officially, don't do that.
You have to add more exposure, right?
A lot more. Yeah. And then I added a little more, and still too thin. And finally, Jason Lane I did what I should have done in the first place and just researched it. And Jason's got this whole chart on his website where it's depending on the time of year and the time of day, this whole thing. Don't forget, this is an ancient photographic technology, relatively speaking. I'm paraphrasing. And I've just started adding 2 to 2.5 stops. Basically, I've just slapped that thing down to ISO 6 to shoot. Yeah. And they've started to come out really well. But that's obviously going to change as we get closer to the summer, because apparently we get more of the right type of light then, and I might only be cutting back one stop in the
It'll respond differently to warm lighting as well. Again, if you're using indoor lights and you're not using lights with a high blue content,
he did a whole thing on that.
Yeah,
too.
That'll affect you. This is what I'm saying, Nicole. You making life hard for yourself. Really, you should just put a woolly hat on and go out on the veranda and shoot a cityscape in just normal light and get a handle. But yeah, I think the temperature as well probably might help.
Yep.
You should reach out to Jason, and tell him what you're doing and get him involved.
Okay, well,
I was going to say that we sort of hopped over this, but you're making direct positives, and on your plates that you're taking, because and the reason why I just said it in that particular way is in our Facebook group, I think today. And I can't remember who did it. I'm going to see if I can quickly find it. But somebody has made a positive image using a dry plate, but under the enlarger. So effectively using a dry plate as film or whatever, and it's worked
as a printing paper.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's really, really cool. I'm not sure what practical uses other than it being looking good are with that, but it's interesting. But that is not what you're doing. You're actually taking the photograph as sort of as normal, and then in your developing process in the darkroom, you're turning that into a direct positive as opposed to So what's actually in high level terms at least? What's actually involved in doing that? And why?
Well, I use say a regular developer. I use Dectol or Multigrade or whichever one is around, and then it's rinsed, and then it goes into a bleaching bath. Now I know there's a way that you can do it with hydrogen peroxide and citric acid by dumping it in one and then putting it back, going back and forth between the two. I was doing that at first, but then I got brave and I now work with the dichromate, potassium dichromate bleach, which bleaches out in a matter of like 15 seconds. It bleaches right out. And then it gets rinsed, and then it's placed in sodium sulfate, which clears it. And then it's rinsed again. And then you can put it back in the developer, or you can use iron out, which is what I use as the final developer. Mind you, you do have to open up the lights. I'm sorry, I forgot that step, that you do have to open it up to light. Right after it's bleached, completely bleached out, you can then open up the lights and you could finish off with the rest of the process. The iron out is actually I learned this from a gentleman called Don Frula on Instagram, who he also does and works with the process. And that's what I don't know how he figured it out, but it works. It works as a second developer. And with paper, it's beautiful. The blacks are nice and rich. The tonal range is beautiful. But I was trying to do that with the glass plates, but I don't think that really will work with the glass plates too much. So I did another set with going back into developer, and I was getting very close results. Like part of it would be as a positive, and then the rest would not be there at all. So I'm not sure what it is that I'm doing wrong, or what it is that I can, how I can adjust it to make it work. But it's almost there. I just got to really take notes each and every time I do something. And it's
turning the lights on and flashing the image is in normal sort of darkroom work. You get that sort of pseudo solarization, they call it, don't you, where you get some reversal of tones. I think we must be playing in that area there. I don't fully understand it. But also, I think in the early forms of chrome transparency or slide film developing, there was, and I just remember reading about this, you don't have to have it these days, but there was a stage where you just have to flash it with light to help with that reversal process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, essentially, unless I'm mistaken, a friend of mine, Vince, can pretty much positive reverse, develop anything. He does it. He shoots paper negatives and develops them as positives, film, everything. If I think he's tried to play with Jason's plates too to do this as well, because he has his sort of process down, including that turn the light on. Essentially, it exposes the silver that hasn't been exposed yet, that the bleach doesn't strip away, and then you develop that. Right.
And then that's when it reverses. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how it reverses. I out of sheer curiosity, I was like, well, what is in iron out? First, I thought it was something you use for t-shirts, like iron out, like iron t-shirts. I'm like, what the hell is this stuff? Sorry, I just added a bleep. But its active ingredient is sodium diethionite, which I understand how this gentleman found it, because it is used, it's a listed ingredient as a second developer for Kodak's direct positive film developing outfit. So basically, he looked for the active ingredients in that step, found a commercial application, which is iron out, and buys that off the shelf.
But what is iron out as a product? Because I've never seen it on the shelves in the supermarkets over in
it's a rust stain remover.
Yeah.
It's a what, sorry?
A rust stain remover.
Okay.
You clean your toilet bowl or something, you know.
Your toilet, my toilet bowl doesn't go rusty.
Well, I'm just no.
Leave that one alone.
Yep. I'm leaving his toilet bowl well alone.
No, I heard you mention it, and I just had no idea what it was.
Yeah, me either. That's why I looked it up. So yeah, smart.
Not bad. Pretty cool.
Super smart.
I just want to just add in. I've did a bit of research, and it was Matt Jones who posted the dry plate as a positive under an enlarge in our Facebook group. There's a picture of an alien and something interesting going on behind. It's a cool photo, actually.
So he had a normal negative in his enlarger, and he was just using the Jason's plate as a receiver to get a positive. Is that what he was doing?
Yeah. I don't know whether it was a normal negative or it was another dry plate. I don't know.
Yeah, could have been either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've seen people use that for the camera manura, the street photographers. They take the negative on paper negative, develop it in there, and then just reshoot the negative onto a second piece of paper, and then they give that positive to the person that took the portrait of. And I was like, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's like the Afghan camera, like what
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Have you played around with liquid emulsion? Because I would think that would be right up your street as well, Nicole.
Yeah, I am working on that too.
Is that one of your secret projects?
Of course,
that's one of my secrets. Yes, I am working on making emulsion. The only thing is, I've only found 35 millimeter. Like the plain acetate. I haven't found 120 is something that I don't think you can find it out there. I've researched for that. I'm not sure how or where I would even.
What if you were thinking about making your own roll film? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh.
Yes.
I was just thinking of using a commercial liquid emulsion just on wood or paper or glass even, which you can do.
I don't know. Ever since I started making my own developer and even the cyanotype on glass emulsion, I kind of got into this thing now. I want to make it myself. So
yeah, I mean, you could probably use a thin paper or a vellum or like the film washi crew who make those really beautiful small limited runs of 120 and 4x5 and 35 millimeter film. They originally got into it by using really fantastic Japanese watercolor paper. You could probably use something like that for the 120. It's not the same as a clear base, but it would be pretty dope.
Yeah. There's so many ways I can approach it. So
that Japanese paper is lovely when it's coated. I know. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Tino Rowe, Nicole, but she does a lot of work on. With like Japanese, I think it's called kozo paper or something, with different emulsions on, and she does she does a lot of. I think you should connect with her because she does a lot of self-portrait work based on aspects of transracial adoption, which is just one of these areas that's I knew nothing about till she came on on the Lenses podcast and talked to us about is about, growing up in a household which just aren't your, race or color, and all the issues that come with that, and that speaks to her now in her artwork. She makes these self-portraits and also portraits of found negatives that she finds in junk stores, on oyster shells that she finds on the Thames shoreline. So she's got this idea of discarded, I don't know if I've spoken about this before, because it's just a brilliant bit of work. These discarded oyster shells, which she then puts liquid emulsion on, and then she projects down images of these found photographs of families, and it's all to do with distortion of identity, distortion of relationships, things not, and the oyster shell that she finds on the Thames has been discarded, So, and does that link with her adoption and all those sort of, and wow, it's just so powerful. And a lot of her, she used a lot of her own imagery of herself in her work as well. So that's a sort of shout out for Tina Rowe.
Well, and when you're looking at the 120 base, we should probably connect you with Nick Brandreth, because he teaches how to make your own. Like, one of the courses he teaches at the George Eastman House is making your own 35 millimeter film. So this is the sort of thing.
There's a whole bunch of videos. I think there's a video on there, a brief video on that. Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah, Nick is the guy for this sort of thing. And as we all know, Nick loves to talk. Love you, Nick. Nick loves to talk.
You'll get, if Eric doesn't send them to you, Nicole, you'll find Nick's details in the show notes of 5 or 6 shows back, I'm guessing. Something like that.
Yeah, you could just friend him on Instagram and direct message him.
Okay.
So what are you loving about cyanotype then, and why cyanotype on glass? Is glass the latest sort of bit of creative outlet for you?
Yeah, I just I'm always looking to see how I can work with a process, like how many ways and different ways can you do it or work with it. And I never knew that it could be done on glass, and just researching, I ended up falling onto this site, and there was this girl doing it on glass, and I'm like, how does she do that on glass? And then I just went crazy. I was researching and looking and trying to find, okay, what will you need? All the tool, like what would you need in terms of chemicals? Like, how does it work? And I got all that information together, and then I just went for it and I did it, and I love it. I really do. And I tried toning as well with them. I've just gone crazy on it. I just love it. I think it really looks pretty on glass. It's really, really nice.
Are there some technical issues because the material is, glass and shiny, with bonding, of anything you're putting on it?
It sticks on pretty good. It's gelatin, with gelatin and the cyanotype chemistry. And I put oxalic acid in there as well, to help the white stay nice and white.
Yeah, and I've always been terrified of putting gelatin on glass. I just have these visions of putting it in to develop it and just watching the gelatin and the emulsions are sort of float to the top, and there's the image just sort of floating like a little jellyfish, and I'm just like,
I feared that too, I feared that as well. But I also when I toned it for 2 hours, and that thing stayed on that glass. It didn't budge. The only thing it does soften a little bit.
Okay.
So I would put glass ice cubes in it just for the water to stay cool, so that it wouldn't, come off the glass, because I was worried about that. But it didn't budge. It just stuck on the glass. So nice. It really bonds very, very well.
This is another subject. There's been quite a few firsts today, which is not bad after 47 episodes. I don't think we've talked about cyanotypes. And is there an overview that you could give us about cyanotypes? A little bit about where they came from, and what you have to do as a photographer to create a cyanotype image.
Well, it's discovered by Sir John Herschel in 1942. And I guess he just discovered putting two different chemicals together, which is ferric ammonium citrate and potassium ferricyanide. And you mix them together. So it's a 1-to-1 mix. And you sensitize a paper like watercolor paper. And then you take a negative, put it on top, you put it outside in the sun, and you get your image. There's a lot more involved in the digital negative part of it, but that's generally what it is.
So is this is not so much about taking the photograph; it's the process of creating the photograph. I've just come up with some really bad words there. So it's a printing process rather than a taking a picture process.
Yes, it's a printing out process. Right. Yes. Yeah.
There's it's very accessible, isn't it, Nicole? As a step into alternative printmaking. Very, and of course you can change that if you don't like that blue color. You can stick it in some tea or coffee, or I've seen someone.
Yeah, there's a
red wine. If you don't, if you've got some red wine gone bad, stick it in that.
Yeah.
But you're using gelatin. I didn't. That was because I was going to bring you back to that because I was aware of those two chemicals that you just mix together, and I've done it where you just brush it onto paper. But that's what I was thinking. Obviously, I thought if you were just brushing that onto glass, but then you mentioned gelatin, so that confused me even more.
Yeah. So it's gelatin mixed with the two formulas, and then
okay.
You heat it up.
Yeah.
You have to put it in the fridge so that it hardens, and then when you're ready to coat your glass, you melt it, and then you coat your glass, and then you let that dry.
It's a bit like the way you use liquid emulsion from the shop, bought liquid emulsion that comes as a rubber. When you melt that up.
It's very similar to that. Very similar to that.
And are you using a fancy photographic bloom grade of gelatin? Because they come in different things called blooms, don't they?
Yeah, I use the one you can buy in the grocery store, the Knox gelatin.
Uh-huh.
I use the Knox gelatin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just ordinary supermarket brand gelatin. I've got a bag of it somewhere, I think.
Yeah.
Everybody does. Like once you get it, you keep it for 25 years because when the hell do you actually use that stuff?
I got it, Nicole, because I was playing. I haven't played around for a while with salt printing. So the biggest investment there, of course, is silver nitrate. Mm-hmm. So with probably a 12% solution. So you buy your silver nitrate, but there you're just coating your paper with a salt solution, and then brushing your silver nitrate, maybe with citric acid on. Some people use that. And then you're away you go and do your printing out process. But some people then mix a gelatin in with that, with a sensitizer, with the salt.
Yes.
Yes. Because I guess you get the image doesn't so much sink into the paper then.
Exactly. It just stays right on the surface. Yeah.
Yeah, something I want to go back to about glass. So. Eric,
glass is cheap, I bet, at the dollar store.
Yeah, it is. But the challenge, though, glass is cheap. And I suppose it doesn't matter if it's UV coated glass or not. Most glass has anti-UV coating because you're printing over the top of that. So who cares?
Yeah, exactly. It's right on the surface.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. In that case, yes, glass is hecka cheap.
So have you played around with X-ray film? We were discussing it. I think it's probably off air, but I can't remember.
No, I haven't. Not as yet. I haven't. It is something I want to consider because 8x10 film is it's expensive, and as Eric was saying, it's. I think it was you, Eric. Was it you that said it was cheaper?
Yeah. X-ray film is way cheaper than normal film by a long shot.
Yeah. So if I'm to go that big, it definitely would be with X-ray film for sure. Yeah.
Well, yeah, especially at 12-inch, like 12-inch by 12-inch, you don't have much of a choice but to go with something like a commercial X-ray film or paper.
Yeah.
Just because nobody really makes
Well, that's where the emulsion comes in. The emulsion comes in. You see?
Do you have the primitive photography book that everybody else ends up getting when they get down this particular rabbit hole?
No, I don't.
It's called The Primitive Photography, A Guide to Making Cameras, Lenses, and Calotypes.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
My gosh. Please. I have so many books already that I've managed to find on Google Books. Don't do this to me, Eric, please. Oh, no.
It's great. It has a guide for making two or three different basic camera designs, 3 or 4 different basic lens designs, and then the formula for making your own saltpaper negatives.
Oh,
because this gentleman back in the day when digital photography was starting to come along and analog, traditional photography was starting to nosedive, he felt that digital photography was soulless and wondered what would happen if there was nothing commercially available for traditional photography. Mm-hmm. So he resolved to make a book about how to do everything yourself without resorting to commercial resources because he feared they were going to go away. So he's an interesting cat. I still haven't managed to find him to talk to in person. He's completely non-digital. He has dropped off the face of the planet. I cannot find him. But it's a great guidebook for basic lenses, basic lens design, the calculations for all that stuff, for building cameras, and also making your own big, large format 8x10 film holders and paper negatives.
Oh, wow. What is it called again?
It's Primitive Photography, A Guide to Making Cameras, Lenses, and Calotypes.
I think I've nearly bought it twice each time after you recommended it.
It is everybody hunts for this thing. And I was lucky when I found it. I just happened to be able to find it at a local bookstore had a copy.
Oh, I'm going to look.
And it's brilliant.
I tell you what, I just rebought, and I'd recommend it actually. It's a book that I've had several times and given it away. And now you can pick it up for just a few of your American dollars or your English pounds on Abe Books. And it's Michael Langford's The Darkroom Handbook. And I'd had this book and I'd given it away because I thought, I don't need that. And I bought another copy of it because I want to get into color printing. And I just wanted an inexpensive guide. And Michael Langford's Darkroom Handbook is just brilliant. And it doesn't really stray much into alternative process, but if you're looking for weird and wonderful darkroom techniques, and it goes into darkroom setup, builds, and the way paper responds and works, and color printing, diagnosing faults, really interesting stuff like how to assess your negatives and whether they're underdeveloped, overdeveloped, and all that sort of thing, or overexposed, or right. Mm-hmm. And for a few dollars, everyone should have it. And so there are some of these books out there, these touch point books, and I think if we find ourselves in a world where, in 100 years' time, will Ilford still be going? Will Kodak still be going? Will these East European people still be making? If you wanted to get into traditional photography, as we know it, will it just be such a niche art form that people are having to, get some gelatin and some silver and mix the two together and start making their own images? Because I'm sure if you get some gelatin, you get some silver nitrate, and you mix the two together, you've got the basis of recording something, haven't you? I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is one reason why I thought of trying to do it myself is exactly that. Like, how long is this going to be here? How long is it going to last?
Right.
And so, yeah, if I can do it myself, I'd love to be able to know how to do that, and go as far as I can with it.
Well, and as we talk about things like X-ray film, X-ray film is going away.
Yeah.
Right. Which is a bummer because I love X-ray film. I love the look of it. I love orthochromatic. There's just a million reasons that I love X-ray film. But sadly, once my current stock of my favorite X-ray film is out, then what?
Yeah.
Well, it's still readily available at the moment. You can still go and buy it for not
the Kodak, not the Ectoscan DRA.
No. Is that single-sided stuff? No,
yeah.
That's becoming difficult to find.
Yeah.
At a reasonable price.
The good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, the the double-sided stuff is difficult to handle, but it's capable of some remarkable results.
Yeah, true.
But
I just know I'm ham-fisted. I will scratch.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I'm glad you said it. I know the way.
Oh no, I admit it.
Nicole, Eric came onto our show before he joined us to talk. We were very much. We went through a run of recommendations for guests for the show, and it was like 6 degrees of separation. One guest would name another suggestion, and so we had him on or her on, and then so it went on, and Eric came on. And we were very much taken by this idea that Eric made lenses out of dollar bills. I don't know if you're familiar with Eric's sort of homemade lenses, dollar bill lens.
Dollar bill?
Yeah. So just, you need to go back into the show when he came on Eric came on as a guest. But so these homemade lenses with dollar bills, lenses inside, and, just... but now Eric has got a degree in lens design. And he's building. He's now building a lens for the girlfriend of a guy who came on the show,
Alana Erickson.
Yeah, and Alana, and it's a wonderful project, and Eric keeps us updated. But if you need to hook up with Eric and reach out with him, because he's got these. He can give you some help with your lens design, particularly if it's wrapped up in a dollar bill.
Or wood,
yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm doing good because I hit the same sort of breaking point that you are with foam core, right? Mm-hmm. Like the dollar bills can only take you so far structurally.
Yes.
Right, and if you go to a certain size or certain length, it just doesn't hold any longer. It just gets too difficult. And I'm not a 3D printer guy. And it's really difficult to find the right diameter pipe for the various pieces of glass that you can get at the prices I can afford. So I just, which is why I went to dollar bills in the first place. So I was like, well, I can buy wood cheaply, which is where these are wood lens barrels for Alana's 8x10 camera that are in progress. I've got to try to finish these today. Getting there. Wow. So yeah, I mean, after a certain point, that's what I was wondering what you were going to do with your 12x12. First I was like, 12 centimeters, 4" 4". Bob's your uncle. You keep doing foam core, but no, yeah, you need something else for your beast.
Yeah, more sturdy. A more sturdy hold, that's for sure.
Yeah, and actually, you should. I should introduce you to Alana regardless. She's a brilliant portrait photographer. And just a really wonderful person, but she's had her own path to photography like you have, and I think the two of you will probably get along just fine.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So just random side note. We're full of random side notes in these parts. So out of curiosity, when you have a bunch of stuff in the works that, Andrew has been gently trying to pry out of you. So if you're not going to tell us what they are, when will we be able to start to see things from some of these projects that you have in the mix that you're being secretive about?
Well, hopefully by summer, when summer hits, they'll be slowly coming to light.
Yep.
I'll be able to share it. It all depends how things flow and how things go.
Right.
But the TLR won't be anytime soon, that's for sure. That's kind of something that I have to give more time on.
Right.
But there are other things. There are other things that are in the mix. Yeah.
I would think, actually, now that we think about that, like your TLR could essentially be a double sliding box camera. You just need to figure out getting a perfect mirror at the perfect angle for the viewpoint, the viewfinder part.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of at one time, and I don't know how that would work. It makes it confusing to me. Like I think of it in my head, but then I'm like, nah. When I look at it as a build, I don't know how that would function. Again, the mirror and all that,
Yep. Yeah, it would essentially have to be a mirror at a perfect angle that then reflects the image up onto your ground glass, and the ground glass is at the exact same distance as your film plane.
Yes. Yeah,
it sounds so simple.
It does. It makes sense, but then when you think of having to put it together, it's it's something else.
And for the audience, I burst out in silent laughter when I said it sounds so simple. So like I was not being that was not with a straight face. Okay. That was not me being a jerk. That was me being very, very sarcastic about how simple it actually is. It's not at all. So
and just for the record, Eric, I got my K in famous photographers beginning with K. I got 2 muddled up. So you're very right. Kudelka is 83, I think. So he's still very much going. But Andre Kurtz is very much dead.
Yes. Yeah.
And I watched a YouTube video about him as well.
Okay. Yeah, Kudelka's he's something else, that guy.
Yeah, I've seen those panoramic pictures of he did in the Holy Land, and there is a book as well that you can get if you can get hold of it.
Yeah, they're breathtaking. Like,
are you a Sorry, Eric, come on.
No, go ahead. I was just going to ask poetic about
Nicole
him.
If she was a photo book lover or collector, or who our influencers were for. Has anybody influenced you either through photo books or from online to go down the route that you pursue with your particular style of self-portraits?
To be honest, I don't really follow anyone. I don't really necessarily look up to anyone. I kind of just do whatever it is that I want to do. The only I could say Sally Mann, for one. She influences me because of the fact that she did what she wanted to do, regardless of how controversial her things may have been. For example, when she photographed her children, there was a lot going on behind that. And I think the strength in that I maybe kind of inspires me somewhat. And I really can't tell you any direct names, to be honest, aside from her.
Well, I'd commend Tina Rowe to you. The other self-portrait pinhole artist who I'm familiar with, who I know is a dear friend, is a lady called Kath Cartman, Cartman, and she does all her work on pinhole. She lives in Norwich in over in East Anglia, and she's very much puts herself into the image, although sometimes you can't tell it's her, and she's very much expressing a series of ideas around self and identity. But yeah, Kath Cartman and Tina Rowe are two. They've both got Instagram accounts if you can find them on there. So check them out.
If there are any photographers who influence you, are there any other sort of traditional artists that influence you, or you just go at it?
I started in fashion. I'll tell you the honest truth. When I started photography, I started it in fashion, and there were a few people that I maybe looked up to. I mean, more or less of how they lit their work.
Okay.
But then once I started to get it myself, it ended. Like, I didn't really follow anything anymore. I kind of just experimented and tested and tried whatever came to my mind to think, can I do this? Is this possible? And then I just kind of fell into my own little world. It's not to say that I don't see work that inspires me, but I don't necessarily follow the photographer. I'll maybe do a search on images and just kind of look, and something that might just spark an idea, but that's really it. To be honest, it really is all it. I mean, I have a few photo books, but when I bought it, I looked at it, went through it, maybe a few times, and then it's kind of just there now. I don't really go back to it. I don't know why that is. It's just the way that I've kind of trailed myself to be, in this world of photography. I just go with my gut, go with my feeling, and that's it. That's all I look for.
Well, that certainly seems to be serving you well. I think sometimes you can get too there's lots of stuff on social media at the moment in the last year of madness that we've had about how do you keep yourself motivated during these sort of, lockdown days. People post up on Twitter to say, "Oh, I've lost my photographic mojo," and then a lot of the answers to that could be, well, take a step away and go and immerse yourself in books. I mean, I'm reading. I think you love him or hate him, American author Bukowski, who's no longer with us, I think, and poet. And I'm reading his book, and it's very, very visual. He's talking to me in a visual language, and I can see, it's the first page. He's talking about, he leaped straight into when he was a child and he was hiding under a table, and he could remember the sunlight hitting the legs of the table and the tablecloth, and he can remember his Aunt Ethel and how she stank of something or other, and someone smoked cigarette. And there's all these visual images and things. And I think that, some people can find that they can immerse themselves in other forms of artwork to get them their inspiration. But you seem to be able to just do it anyway, which I'm very envious of you, to just find this natural enthusiasm without having to go and look in a book or go online.
So I do have a sketchbook. I have a sketchbook.
Oh, do you?
And, it's a big black book. And, whenever something comes in my mind, I just do my sketches and then I put it away. And then when it comes time to say, what am I going to tackle? And I just open up this book and I can look at all my ideas, and then I just work from that. So I kind of have a bank of ideas that I always revert back to, and it just keeps me going.
Is that ideas of images, projects, or cameras, or what?
Some of them are just single images. Some of them are projects, conceptual ideas. A lot of the conceptual ideas really were not to be of me, but of someone else. But it just kind of, reversed itself, and I'm now the one.
Well, you presumably you can easily take direction, and you're not going to bitch if you tell yourself to put your head in a certain way or raise your arm in a certain way. So that makes a lot of sense, and particularly with Pinhole, you've got plenty of time to walk around and get yourself set up, haven't you, as well?
Yeah.
Wonderful stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I think that's probably a good time to start to bring things to a close now. And Nicole, I just want to. I'm going to thank you again anyway, but thank you for.
Thank you.
Sharing your insights with us, taking us to places we've not been before. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us.
Thank you. I had a great time. This is really enjoyable.
That's good. Well, we'll come back to you shortly because we've just got a quick bit of housekeeping, and that is to say that we have one donation since we were last on, and that donation was by none other than Michael Wellman. Who those regular listeners, I think was it the last show we talked about Michael?
With his email to Matt Marash, you mean?
That's right. And also, how do I get to coffee? How do I get to the coffee page to give you a donation? And so we finally got round to letting him know, and he was good on the offer because he has donated to us, and he wrote a little note. Despite us being pretty merciless with him, and he says,
a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. So far that Eric actually got a little bit concerned about Andrew and I and our British sense of humour, but fortunately, Michael did took it in the right way. He was done with love, and he writes, "Love the show and abuse." LOL. Thank you, Simon, for the direct link to the show. I'm rather this is for the coffee page. I'm rather thick when it comes to anything with a commuter. No, literally, he did actually write commuter, not computer. So yeah,
Better.
it's continuing to demonstrate that. So, but you got there. Well done, Michael. Keep it up. And because literally spelling it out helped me get here and give you the donation that your show deserves. So thank you very, very much, Michael.
So he sent us a penny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, that was no, and he was actually quite generous as well. So thank you very, very much, Michael. Right, let's do things like shout outs, and I'll go over to Andrew first. Have you got any shout outs, Andrew?
Yeah, well, I've mentioned two already. So Tina Rowe and Kath Cartman, who both have Instagram pages, which you have, and I'll put their details in the show notes. But yeah, I'll have a shout out to, in many ways, a most unlikely, for me anyway, thing to be associated with. It's got the word hip in it, and if anyone's hip, it's really not me. Hip Shoots Film, which is at the UK's Ben Mills. And I met Ben on a photo walk in London. And Ben, I'm holding this up to the camera, but none of you guys can see us apart from my co-conspirators. Ben puts out this periodic collaborative zine called 4 Stops, where he has 4 photographers who collaborate with him, and there's a theme, and 1 or 2 of these a year maybe comes out, and the latest one's all sort of color nighttime shots of signs and streets and all good stuff like that, neon. So and he has a website, hipshootfilm.com, probably. Ben Mills, look him up on Twitter as @hipshootsfilm. And he's got a few issues of the latest 4 Stops left, but volume 1 and 2 I know are sold out.
Okay. And Eric, have you got any shout outs?
Yeah, I guess I do. Definitely shout out to Jason Lane for making the dry plate negatives and also taking my idiotic beginner questions with grace and aplomb and patience. And Nick Brandreth actually reached out and gave me some advice after the first few plates I shot were super thin. He just proactively reached out and said, "You need to do this." And I said, "I shall," and it worked. Are
you still developing in your dishwasher?
Yes, I am. I'm developing in my dishwasher. I'm loading up the Cinestill monobath in the dishwasher and just putting it in there and away it goes. It dries aces. It's great. And then lastly, I did a really lovely little photo walk around Berkeley yesterday with none other than our friend Jenny Sampson, who got me on this show in this first place, much to your dismay. And she showed me her favorite wrecked yard car, and it's just brilliant. And the shot I got of it is just brilliant. So thanks, Jenny, for the time out in the sun and showing me just an awesome. I can't wait.
What's your latest little project of disused, abandoned American cars on driveways or wherever, and it's all about consumerism, and it speaks to American culture and lifestyle, road trips. It can speak of all sorts, can't it? An old rusty car.
Yeah, exactly. And this particular car is not even in a driveway or someplace you would normally park it. It's at the corner of the property of a big giant mansion, and it's just like next to the sidewalk, overgrown with trees growing over it. It's ridiculous. It's probably been there for 20 years, at least 25 years. It's such a good shot. So I'm excited. Anyway, so that's me talking too much as usual.
Well, to balance that, I can't remember who I should be shouting out to. So I'll move head over to Montreal and Nicole. Have you got any shout outs for us?
I have a general shout out really for everybody who's been following me and supporting me and also inspiring me. And also to you guys for inviting me to the show. It really has been a pleasure, and I love discussions like this. It makes me feel good. It makes me know that I'm in the right place. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I mean, you've certainly come to the right place if you actually want to feel better about yourself, because we know so little. We the three of us here have learnt a lot today. So yes, that's a good reason to talk to us. But no, actually, I've just remembered of a shout out, and it's connected, and we've mentioned it a couple of times, but not really too formally. But you did a show with Ethan, Nick, and Graham on the Homemade Camera podcast. We mentioned it a couple of times, but I think it's just worth mentioning again. It's that show that you were on. I mean, I like the show anyway, but that show that you were on, that was one of the standout shows for me, because
Thank you.
You some of the ideas that you had, I think they were just excellent, and it was just great to hear you brainstorming with the guys as well. So anyone's listening, do check that episode out. Okay, so Nicole, if people want to see your work, and I sincerely expect, seriously expect that people will do, what are the best ways for people to look at what you do?
I have my Instagram, which is Nicole Small _1on1. I'm mostly active on that platform. There's also, I have a online diary. It's called NicoleSmallJournalEntries.wordpress.com. It's some of the things that I don't share on Instagram. And there's also, I have a Facebook page as well. And it's Nicole.Small.77. And that's more of a personal page, but I do put some of the ideas and things that I'm working on there as well. And that's the main pages that I'm on.
Well, sorry, very quickly, I know I'm going to screw Simon's show ending up. You've just moved into a new creative space, and you're going to do darkroom printing very quickly?
Yes, I am. Once I get things set up, I was a little bit, I got halted because of what was going on. But once I get set up, I will kind of show a little behind the scenes of the studio space and do more darkroom printing, something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I've done it occasionally, but trying to make it work at home, it's a real task. It's a real task. I don't have a big bathroom, so.
You seem very excited when you announced it on one of your YouTube shows a little while ago. So we look forward to seeing more news of that and fun in the darkroom. That's what it's all about. Sorry, Simon, for cocking that up for you.
No, I'm glad you did. And actually, it just gave me another reason to quickly look at Nicole's Instagram feed. And there's a photo. Well, there's loads of good photos on there, but there's one that caught my eye because I was thinking, is that Michael Stipe of REM? And interestingly enough, I then went into read the description, and it's an album cover that you've did. Is it BD?
Yeah, BD. Yeah.
That's it.
That was really exciting. That's the first time someone really wanted that specifically for their work. I was on a high. I was so excited. I couldn't believe it, but there it is,
That's a really cool shot.
Yeah, it's a lovely shot.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So, Andrew, what do people do if they want to get in touch with us on the show?
They ask Eric for an email address.
So, Eric, what's the email address?
Oof. It's funny. I was just thinking of that the other day. I believe it is. Well, is it large format photography podcast @gmail.com.
Well done.
I can never remember if it's if there's a appended to the front. Yeah, I always remember that there's a podcast down the back, but it's the.
Yeah. If there's a there, you send it to somebody else. That'll be to the large format photography. So that would explain that. And we do actually have an Instagram feed, which is not that interesting because I look after it. So we do put stuff out there. So if you just look up large format photography podcast, you will find out our Instagram feed. And what else? There's other things. Flickr, yes, we've got Flickr. I think we haven't mentioned that for a couple of shows.
No.
Because Colin looks after that as well, doesn't he? Colin Devereux.
And he does a great job as well. Thank you, Colin.
So thank you. And thank you for the shows that we didn't mention that, Colin.
Yeah, he does.
And I think that's just about it. Yes, you can donate to us on our coffee page, and you can do like Michael did and just type out large format photography podcast in the search, or add that onto coffee.com or something like that. Anyway, there are ways of getting there. Michael found us. You can find us too. So I think that's it. Oh, no, it's not. This is where I ask Andrew about how we can follow him when he's not on this podcast.
When I'm not on this podcast, you can find me at most social media type things. Well, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as Warboys Snapper, Warboys Snapper. And then hanging out in the Lensless Podcast Facebook group as well, which is just ticked over 1,000 members finally.
Okay, and Eric, outside of this podcast, where can people see your stuff?
Pretty much just on Instagram, ERIKHMATHY. Although at the moment you'll see the feed flooded with baby bunnies. We rescued some bunnies, and one of them was a mama, and she was pregnant. So we have baby bunnies who are far too adorable not to take photographs of. And then the Alana's lens build is progressing, and the glass plate negatives.
I've not seen any large format photography photographs of your bunnies.
No, they don't hold still. Like they don't hold still long enough. Like, if you want difficult portraiture, you need to do rabbit portraiture.
You can use flash. Use light. Light will freeze them. Actually, it does anyway, isn't it? You shine a headlight at them, and then they stop anyway, don't they? Isn't that the idea?
You might be thinking of deer. A deer in the headlights is the phrase.
Well, we have rabbits. Well, we don't have as many deer over here, so it's rabbits that say that they're freezing in the light over here. But there you go.
Give them a carrot.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes. There was something else that came to mind as well. It was probably just as well I've forgotten it. Yeah. Okay. Let's finish off again. That's it. It's the kind of stuff that I do, isn't it? Yeah, it's me. I'm on Twitter as Simon Four. I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic, which is also the name of my website. If you stick co.uk on that, where you can get lens caps, and I've actually started to make made-to-measure lens caps for people. So if you have a weird shaped or sized lens that you would need a cap for, just get in touch with me via that website. I'm also every 2 weeks? Is it once a month? But I do another podcast called the Classic Lenses Podcast with Johnny Sisson and Perry G. Sorry.
Wow.
I knew there was somebody I did it with. And that's become a little bit infrequent at the moment, but that is another podcast that I do. So that's just about it. So Nicole, again, thank you very, very much for being with us.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. Lovely to speak to you again.
Yeah. And
we look forward to perhaps seeing you when we have another gathering in the forest, or whatever we call them.
Oh, yeah. Well, that should be happening. I know there was...
When are we doing that? Aren't we due to do another one of those?
We should be, definitely. And, with the way things are going, we might even have a real one. But I just remember there was something that I don't think we talked about last time that we need to mention, and that's Eric's film is now available for everybody to watch whenever they like. Because that was different. That's new, isn't it? So do you want to just quickly let our listeners know about that, Eric?
Oh, yeah, I guess my brain wasn't even there. So Adobe released the full-length movie on Vimeo. If you go to... we'll post it on the links for this podcast, because there's a whole string of random characters. Or if you go to Vimeo.com and search for Adobe Studio, you'll find the Adobe Studio organization page, and the movie is there, full length, free to watch wherever you live.
Absolutely brilliant. If you've not seen it, do watch it, because not only has it got Eric in there, it's got lots of interesting people, including former guest on the show, Wayne Martin Belger. So make the effort. Watch. Take pictures, ride slow, take pictures. Which one is it, Eric?
Ride slow, take photos.
There you go. Something on those lines. Right, our music, which you can hear at the moment, is by Kevin MacLeod, and it's called Two Finger Johnny. And that's it. So I hope you've enjoyed this show, and we'll be back soon. So goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.